Hello everyone. Let's review the results of the 3-card blind main event tournament for September. This month we had a total of 323 participants, which is by far the greatest number of participants we've had so far in this event. Among those 323 participants, we had 117 new players. So if you are a new player who participated this month, thanks for trying the format and welcome to the community. This month there were 238 unique decks submitted. If we look at unique decks as a percentage of the total number of submissions, this is a lower number of unique decks compared to the prior month. However, we use a more sophisticated measurement than just uniqueness to measure the format's diversity. If we weigh cards submitted by both their popularity and performance and run them through the Simpsons Diversity Index, we will see that not only was this month marginally more diverse than the prior month, it was the most diverse meta we have seen to date. So just to clarify a little further how this month was more diverse than the prior month, despite having a lower percent of unique decks relative to the total number of submissions, we don't consider a deck to be contributing meaningfully to diversity if it isn't actually winning any games. So this month not only had a very high number of unique decks, those decks also performed well enough to meaningfully contribute to the meta, which is why the diversity score for this month is the highest of all time. The 3-card blind diversity grade for this month was a B+. The most popular card this month was Ancient Tomb with an 11.46% popularity. Ancient Tomb also had a strong average score of 61%. And as we move through the video and cover our winners, it will become clear why this is the case. For context for those of you who are newer to the format, seeing Ancient Tomb at the top of the popularity list is pretty normal because it is one of the stronger mana sources available in the format and it supports many different strategies. Its popularity has gone up a little bit from the prior months, but it is still in line with expectations for a mana source like this one. As already mentioned, this was the most diverse meta we've ever seen for the 3-card blind main event so far, so many of the trends that we saw this month were very subtle or could be easily extrapolated from looking at our winners. For that reason, I'm going to move on to discussing our winners and we can consider those trends as they come up. I'm going to begin with our more unique winners and then move towards the popular strategies that dominated this month. Our first winner is Books, who came in first in Novice 1 with Luminarch Aspirant, Felia, Exuberant Shepherd, and Remote Farm. The 2 threats plus Depletion land is a classic 3-card blind shell, and Luminarch Aspirant and Felia let the deck have multiple ways to scale their threats, and Felia has the added utility of being able to disrupt your opponent's scaling threats by resetting them. Our next winner was Quagsirus, who won Aspirant 3 with Remote Farm, Skrelv's Hive, and Soul Partition. This is another conventional strategy that we've seen a few times before with these exact card choices. Skrelv's Hive is a threat that is resilient to many different types of removal, but Soul Partition's ability to remove any permanent from the game, and often prevent the opponent from ever redeploying it, is what truly set Quagsirus ahead of other members of this pod. In Aspirant 2, our winner was Jethro, who was playing Academy Ruins, Calciform Pools, and the Filigree Silex. This is a deck that claimed some wins in the month prior and prompted the community to vote on the Filigree Silex as to whether it should be added to the ban list or not. The Filigree Silex narrowly avoided a ban, so it's not surprising to see it claiming wins again this month. In Aspirant 1, our winner was Oogle's Master, who was playing Mockingbird, Ocelot Pride, and Undiscovered Paradise. Ocelot Pride is one of the stronger 1-drops in the format right now, and this deck can use Mockingbird to get a second copy that has flying. If the opponent has no removal and has no way to stop the flying Ocelot from getting through for damage, this deck will generate 2 1/1 cat tokens a turn and will quickly get out of control. We also saw Charge Partitioner take a win in Contender 4 with Ocelot Pride using a different deck, which was Curse of Silence, Ocelot Pride, and Plains. I think Ocelot Pride is unique as a 1-drop in the 3-card blind format because it can be leveraged as just a generically powerful 1-drop, as seen in Charge Partitioner's deck, or you can lean into some of the more unique synergies the card has, like Oogle's Master did with Mockingbird. Our winners for Novice 4 and Novice 3, Banarli and the Kirito God, were both playing Boseiju Who Endures, Mishra's Factory, and Mox Emerald. Ever since Boseiju was unbanned, this deck has been performing very well. Its ability to channel Boseiju on the first turn of the game earns this deck many free wins against opponents relying on depletion lands or storage lands to power their strategy. In Contender 5, we had a tie between Wax Quail and Yum Yum 36, who were both playing Ancient Tomb, Steel Overseer, Steel Overseer. Ever since City of Traders got banned in June, this deck has been popping up more and more and continues to perform very well. Scaling threats have always been a core part of 3-card blind, and this deck asks the question, why not run 2? Our next winners were all using Anointed Peacekeeper. In Novice 2, we had Cat Food Sounds and Shrugbird, who were both playing Anointed Peacekeeper, Crystal Vein, and Mox Pearl. And in Contender 2, we had Kanar and Wizard 61,200 playing the same deck. And in Contender 1, Cephalopod was playing Anointed Peacekeeper, Ancient Tomb, Mox Pearl. These turn 1 Anointed Peacekeeper decks have been a known part of the meta for a long time, but they truly shot up in popularity this month and performed extraordinarily well. I think that a possible driver for this was that Thoughtseize was added to the ban list last month. Although Anointed Peacekeeper is not a targeted discard effect like Thoughtseize is, it does occupy a similar niche because it aims to shut the opponent off of their game plan as early as the first turn of the game. With Thoughtseize having been banned, players may have been looking for a suitable alternative, which for some players was Dreams of Steel and Oil, but for many players may have been Anointed Peacekeeper. And our final winning deck this month was Stingerback Terror. In Novice 5, our winner was S-Mask, who was playing Ancient Tomb, Mox Ruby, and Stingerback Terror. And in Contender 3, Tendril was playing the same deck. And in our Exemplar pod, we had a tie between Agender Apricot, who was playing this same Stingerback Terror deck, and CK, who was playing the same deck but swapped Mox Ruby for Simian Spirit Guide. With recent changes to the meta, this deck has gotten a lot stronger since it was first introduced to the format. Of note, with Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares both being banned, many of the options that players are left with to deal with large threats fail to deal with Stingerback Terror, like Dismember and Ice Flow. Also of note, Stingerback Terror has a favorable matchup into Anointed Peacekeeper, which was clearly a significant part of the meta this month. Just to add a little more context there, the plot ability on Stingerback Terror is a special action, which means that Anointed Peacekeeper's tax effect doesn't affect that 3 mana cost to exile it from your hand. And this has ultimately led to Agender Apricot claiming the champion title again for the 3rd time in the past 4 months. That is a truly incredible achievement, so I'd like to congratulate Agender Apricot for claiming that champion title again with an 1869 ELO rating. And with that, we're going to congratulate all of our winners one more time here, and move on to discussing which cards will be included in this month's ban vote. The first card included on this list is Anointed Peacekeeper, which was the 10th most popular card this month, with a potent 63% average score. If we were to consider the Ancient Tomb and Crystal Vein variants as the same deck, this would have been the most popular deck this month. In past metas, Anointed Peacekeeper has been very strong, but has represented a small and healthy niche of the meta. Anointed Peacekeeper decks being the most popular deck overall is not something I would consider healthy or interesting for the format. That being said, Anointed Peacekeeper is a card that is vulnerable to decks that can play through that tax effect. So I think that this is an issue that could be self-correcting, but I would understand if players are not eager to see this card again for a while. The next card on our list is Stingerback Terror. While Stingerback Terror was not overwhelmingly popular this month, 4 out of the 5 players that submitted Stingerback Terror won their pods overall, and the card won the tournament overall by coming in first place in our Exemplar League pod. As far as all-in big threat decks go, Stingerback Terror has an edge over decks like Rotting Regisaur, in part because it's able to play through cards like Anointed Peacekeeper and Ice Flow, and it turns out just having flying is generically very powerful. There are lots of alternatives to Stingerback Terror that the meta could adjust to, so I feel that players wouldn't miss this card too much if it was added to the ban list. Next up we have Boseiju Who Endures. Ever since the card was unbanned, we've seen it performing extremely consistently across all ranks. It was also one of the more popular cards this month, tied with Anointed Peacekeeper as the 10th most popular card. Because the deck is so safe and consistent, Boseiju being legal has a significant impact on the viability of other decks, like decks using depletion lands or storage lands. So if Boseiju were rebanned, we might see some of those decks be able to thrive a little more. The next card on the list is Steel Overseer. Steel Overseer was the 9th most popular card this month, and it had a very strong 65% average score. Double Overseer decks have been becoming increasingly popular, and that deck was the 4th most popular deck this month. And the 5th most popular deck this month was also a Steel Overseer deck using Phyrexian Revoker. For a card as generically strong as it is, Steel Overseer has been relatively unpunished by the meta and continuously puts up impressive and consistent performances. And the final card on our list is Ocelot Pride, which was tied with Boseiju as the 10th most popular card this month. Ocelot Pride is one of the strongest 1-drops in the format right now, if not the strongest. Historically, when we see one 1-drop dominate the format, it can become extremely overrepresented in the meta. I will confess that I don't think Ocelot Pride has hit that point yet, and I think it's kept in check by the fact that there are some other similarly powerful 1-drops like Heartfire Hero, Hex Drinker, and Sleep Curse Fairy that help offer alternatives that each have their own distinct set of strengths and weaknesses. The reason I am bringing up this point of skepticism is that if Ocelot Pride were banned, I suspect the fallout of that would just be that we see much more of these other 3 cards, which at least in the short term might lead to a decrease in diversity. That being said, if the community wants to see a continued decrease in the power of 1-drops available in this format, that might be a necessary evil to tolerate for at least a short period of time. And that wraps up all of the cards that will be included in this month's ban vote. If you're interested in participating in the ban vote, you can find a link to that in the description of this video. Thank you again for another incredible month of 3-card blind. It's been a joy to see this community continue to grow and thrive. Thanks for watching everyone, and see you soon.